Good afternoon, everybody. Now the time is 2:30, and with me today I have the management team of Zerion Pharma, CEO Ole Viborg, CFO Jakob Hansen, and Head of Regulatory Affairs, Monica Gonzalez. Welcome to you, and welcome to the participants. And today's session is in English. And you are, as always, very welcome to post your questions during the presentation. I will publish the questions and forward them to the management team. Today, Ole will start running through very rapidly the presentation. We already did 2 sessions with the company, but we will dive a little further into the regulatory affairs. That's why Monica joined us, and also focus a little on partnerships. So with that said, welcome to Ole, Jakob, and Monica. Please, Ole, go on.
Thank you very much, Klaus. I'm happy to be here again. And as you said, I will take you through the introduction to the company for the people that have maybe not attended the previous sessions, and start out by telling a little about Zerion and what we're doing. Zerion Pharma is a drug development company. We are solving one of the biggest problems that we believe are in the pharmaceutical sector, and that is the transition from drug discovery to drug development, meaning clinical studies. When you go from the drug discovery to the development phase with small oral drug molecules, they need to be soluble. And if they're not soluble, they cannot be taken up in the organism. And that's why a lot of drugs, they actually do not reach the market. So we have made a solution to this. We've developed a platform called the dispersome technology, and we can use this platform to increase solubility and the bioavailability, the concentration of the plasma of all drugs. We have a number of partnerships already established, and we have clinical trials coming up. We have also income from our activities. So this year we expect to make in the order of 1 million euros from these partnerships. When we look ahead, there are 2 areas which are business on. One is, and that's the most important, to help completely new drugs reach the market. And second, we reformulate existing drugs. And by doing this, we believe that we can reach break even already by 26. So it's a fairly short period for a pharmaceutical company. We are today a team of 15 employees. The management team is, in addition to Jakob and Monica that are here today, composed of Corbinian Löbman. He's the key inventor behind the technology. And we also have Wei Tian. He's joining us from Lonza AG, one of the biggest contract manufacturers in the world. And he's a very experienced guy in bringing new product formulations to the market. The technology, just to recap, it's in principle a simple technology where we combine a crystalline drug with the protein that we get from other food ingredients. It's called beta-lactoglobulin, or BLG. We create dispersomes that are formulations that are disordered, but at the same time stable. And we have shown that this formulation can increase the solubility of the drugs of up to 50 times. So it's a very, very efficient technology. And moreover, we can load drug up to 50% of the formulation, which is higher than the most alternative technologies are able to provide. We have upscaled the technology, and we have tested it in so far 15 animal studies, rodents, dogs, and pigs. And we are now aiming at starting the first human trial, hopefully already end of this year. I will jump over the animation here and take you to the partnership slide here. That is very important for our business. We are building Zerion Pharma on a basis where we both have IP coming from companies like Rousselot, and we have a provider, very important provider, and as alle, we have Hovione, that is a key manufacturer in the field. And then we have finally our development partnerships with some large pharma companies. And here we have DSM, which is actually an excipient ingredient producer, and Bayer, which is of course well known to everyone, and then Indholdet Pharma that is taking our first formulated drug to the market. When we go ahead, we will have even more partnerships, because the partnerships, they are going to be the gateway to success, and the more products we can get in, the more products will succeed, and the more money we will make at the end. I will then go a little ahead here. So I'll say a little more about other food ingredients. It's the foundation for our business is to get access to the beta global in the BLD. And we have since 2018 worked very closely with other food ingredients and built last year a new factory to BLD. They have this particular way of producing it and have a long-term supply agreement in place with Arla. And this foundation is going to be a critical part in our strategy. And therefore, although we don't say so much about now, we actually spent the 2 first years on really getting these things in place. So I'm actually quite proud that we managed to do this, because other foods, they don't normally make a lot of this type of agreements. But we managed to also convince Arla that this was a very interesting application of their BLG that is also used for others. And I should just say here that the reason we chose BLG is because Arla is producing it in a very high purity, in a very, say, robust manner. So we have the same, say, quality material from batch to batch. And finally, and most importantly, it's a very safe. So there's a lot of documented product, and there's also a more historic use of BLG as a component, both in protein, say whey powder, and formulations that are used as a substitute for mother milk. The second partnership that I also would like to say a few more words about is Hovione partnership. Hovione, they approached Zerion Pharma 2 years ago and expressed interest in doing a partnership with us. And of course, you always get a little flattered when people they are approaching you, but more importantly, there's a very good synergy in the partnership we have established with Hovione. Hovione are one of the best producers in the world of this type of products. They are producing also for Novo Nordisk, one of their key components, and they have almost 20 other productions for commercial partners around the world. So they are experts in the field. They are, for us, an important part of their market, the dispersion technology to their customers, bringing new projects in, and eventually that these projects will, when they succeed, go into commercial scale manufacturing, so that we have the entire, let's say, line of sight from the early stage formulation to the commercial stage where customers, they can use Hovione to do this. So it's actually a very beautiful partnership. Of course, nothing comes easy, but it is actually, it's a good match. And from our perspective, it's an idea, because we are saving all the investments that normally we would need to do in order to upscale and do GMP manufacturing. So we have this actually at hand. And we believe this is also giving a lot of credibility into the industry. So while we may be able to get some customers, we also cannot reach some customers because they're not relying on a small company like Zerion Pharma. We get this credibility having a partner like Hovione. So with this, I would like to turn over to the regulatory part. And here, as an introduction, we are, of course, approaching the 2 business area, new drugs and reformulation of existing drugs. And there are quite a few regulatory issues and, let's say, challenges associated with this. When we look at the drug development cycle, it goes from the early stage with discovery, where you synthesize new compounds, you do tox studies, you go into clinical studies, and then you launch and you market the drugs on the market. Then typically you have a patent protection until that time when it expires from the market, And a lot of companies, they are seeking to extend this patent protection as much as possible. When the patent expires, you go in and you have the clinical, or generic products and also improvements of generic products. And the dispersonal technology actually has the beauty of fitting into this development path or the entire ecosystem, both in the early stages, but also in the later stages. So normally we would go in here at the stage where you go from discovery to development, clinical development, but we can also go in later. We can go in the later stage of clinical development, substituting already developed formulations. We can extend the patent protection that the companies have by making formulations, replacing them on the market. And finally, we can go in at the time when the patents have expired, offering either generic products or improved generic products. So there are many places where we can enter the market. And from a regulatory perspective, we have tried to illustrate this by saying that we have three basic challenges here. The first one is the hard one. The second is the modest one, where we work on extension of existing products. And the last one is the easy one. That's when we make one-to-one generics. And I think Monica, she is able to take you a little more into the darkness of this
Thank
challenge.
you, Ole. Thank you, Ole. Well, I will explain the three key pathways, as you have mentioned, that can be followed with the use of dispersion technology. The hard one is linked to new chemical entities. The need to increase the solubility of novel drugs is a big challenge, as you said, and dispersion may be a solution for a majority of these molecules with poor solubility. Once this point is solved, related companies will face other challenges, such as success clinical trials or regulatory evaluations. Dispersion technology will accompany the required full application for this kind of molecules. Name or categorization of the legal basis used are different in US or in EMA, but the essence is the same. The full application will be based on three key arms: quality, safety, and efficacy of the product. For that, several clinical trials are required. For instance, phase 1 to check safety and correct dose, phase 2 to prove efficacy and side effects, and finally, phase 3 for efficacy and monitoring of adverse reactions. All these studies, plus the registration time for approval, takes around 8-9 years each as average. This will be higher for complex molecules or difficult indications, such as cancer, for instance. Once the risk-benefit balance of the product has been confirmed by the authorities, an additional post-marketing studies, phase 4, should be carried out. What do all these steps or phases mean in terms of money for a company who is pursuing a new chemical entity? The average per study cost around all therapeutic areas from phase 1 to phase 4 are around $60 million. That means this is not a cheap pathway. The medium or the modest pathway for dispersion technology is linked to what it is called life cycle management. That means improve existing drugs in any of the following ways: by reducing the content, by reducing the drug content, for instance, option 2, as it is presented on the slide, or tablet burden, option 1. In both cases, the regulatory pathway follows a hybrid application, which means that the applicant must justify and provide full safety and effectiveness reports. In this specific case, the authorities may rely on studies not conducted by or for the own applicant, but studies already performed on a previous approved drug, what we were calling new chemical entities. This is based on the idea to avoid unnecessary duplication of studies if they are not really needed. This can result in a much less expensive and much faster route to approval compared to a traditional pathway, as we were mentioning, the hard case. Clinical studies and a registration procedure will take between 3 and 5 years-ish, as average between different areas, and depending on the complexity of the studies, the cost can vary from $4 to $40 million. Using this person technology, this option may give new and differentiated products, reducing drug content or number of less tablets, which means a tremendous commercial value and benefit for patients. A pure generic drug is a medication created to be the same as an already marketed drug in terms of dosage form, safety, strength, route of administration, quality, and even its intended use. I guess we can go to the next slide, Ole. So that means that confirming same bioavailability, no additional studies are needed to support this application. Therefore, the timelines are even shorter compared to the hybrid application. And in this case, we are talking about 2 to 3 years. Having in mind that only phase 1 bioavailability or bioequivalence study is required, also the cost should be reduced. The average cost in this case, we are talking about 4 million each. Due to this person technology, we have also the possibility, as you mentioned before, in some cases to bypass key patent rights IP and launch a straight generic formulation earlier than other companies. I can take also the next slide if you want, Ole. Which is related. This person technology is based on the use of VLG as a novel excipient, and its regulatory acceptance is critical for us. What does novel excipient mean? This is an excipient that has not been assessed by any regulatory authority in the past. And what are the challenges that we have here then? A novel excipient cannot be approved alone. It must be registered together with a drug compound. Before obtaining any MA or FDA VLG approval, is required a lot of work around the proposed novel excipient. Zerion has been working a lot around that, and it can be confirmed the qualification of VLG as an excipient from a quality and safety perspective, which is key to moving into the next steps. The selection of the appropriate program and the success of the clinical trials for the finished product are needed for the assessment and approval of VLG. This will trigger the establishment of the corresponding monograph in the future, which make easier the future evaluation in other applications. And finally, I would like to remind that VLG is produced from whey. This is a byproduct from raw milk to produce cheese, utilizing common known processes on the dairy industry, and therefore it is not expected any concern from regulatory authorities during its assessment. It's all from my side, I guess.
Okay.
And continue with just a brief summary here of the way we make income. We also presented this in the past. We have our income model from the new chemical entities based on an early stage where we get small payment from our partners, 50 to 300,000 project. Then it gives us the income in the long term will be royalties on the sales of the products. We also get income in a similar manner of management partnerships. Here we sometimes we develop projects ourselves and we don't get any money, of course. And when we go to the license and develop milestone payments, we typically will get less because it's reformulated programs. So in the order of, let's say, half to 2 million euros. And eventually we get royalties on the sales, But these royalties can go as far as 20%, depending on how much we invest in the projects. So these are basically the two business models we are working with. We have, as I said before, revenues already. This year we expect 1 million euros in revenues, and we also expect to have a quite interesting news flow from the company. We believe that here in the first quarter or beginning of second quarter, we can announce results from our study on cannabis product. We also expect a license agreement then to happen. We will have hopefully the first pharma partner deciding to take a new chemical entity into clinicals in the third quarter this year. And then in the second half of the year, we hope that our partner Indholdet, they will bring the first reformer human studies, and we will file an IND for our lead program. Then we will also, in the second part of 23, faster file for the BLG with the US regulatory authorities, FDA. And an IPO, 23, 24, this is to be seen. You know all that the markets are uncertain. More important is when will we have the first product approved by the FDA, and this could happen in 25 or 26. So we are out in funding rounds. We are raising around 1 to 2 million euros, and everyone here is selling shares at a price of 7 kroner, and we hope to have closed this round in March 23. And the is supposed to bring us to the 2 key milestones, starting the first human clinical trial on our lead program and getting to the partner decision to bring the first to the clinics. So there are good reasons to invest in the company. We believe from IP position, a good management team. We have a proven technology. We have partnerships in place. We have a relatively modest risk compared to other companies in this space. We are already, and we think there's a strong potential in the share value in the long run. So with that, I would like to close again the presentation here and invite you to contact Jakob or myself. And we have a fairly simple mode for subscribing shares in the company. That's all. I hope there are some questions we can take after this.
Thanks a lot, Ole and Monica, for running through your presentation. Hopefully succeed in finding 2 to 3 million euros. As you outlined, Ole, potential investors can contact you on your email. We won't post anything afterwards, but it's quite straightforward. 2 to 3 million euros. Hopefully they close in the March, and they have a lot size of 250,000 to participate in this round, and that's Danish kroner. Just to clarify. And with that said, there's a couple of questions popping up here, so I think we should start up, Ole. The first one here is, who are your biggest competitors currently, or what sort of competing technology is out there that solves the same problem as this person?
I think that the biggest competitor that we have today, there's not a single company that's our biggest competitor. But I think the biggest company we see from what we call conventional polymers. These are I'd say chemical synthesized polymers that you use to create the same type of increase of solubility, and these have been in use for more than 20 years, and there's actually quite an established market for this. It's almost like $3 billion sales into industry of this type of polymers and other solubility enhancing agents. We think that they are quite good in many cases. They are sufficient to solve the problem. So they are certainly a serious competition. However, we believe that we have the two benefits of being able to put more drug in the formulations and to increase solubility much more. So when we look at all the projects we have done so far, we have been able to either benchmark to the same level or being better. And this doesn't mean that you would not select the competitors, because they are, of course, more proven, more safe, whatever. But I'll say that they are the main competition we see out there, these polymers.
Thanks a lot, Ole. And I can just repeat what Ole mentioned at the last presentation. So there's two competitors in the Nordic environment, and as Ole mentioned here, it's more like generation 1.5, not to scare anybody, where Zerion is more about a whole new way of looking at solubility, and you could say a 2.0 version. Is that all right to use that term, Ole?
Well, I think it's probably even more than that, because what we are bringing to the market is actually a new concept. So where the polymers, they are traditional technology. We are taking proteins, and proteins in general they're actually counterintuitive to use in this type of formulation technology. But it's a novel way to increase solubility, and to our knowledge, it has not been done in this way before. So, well, call it 2.0 or whatever. That's not so important. I think the importance lies in the results that you're achieving, and if we can just contribute, let's say, to 5% of the new drugs that are in development, we have a very nice business here, because there are like 1,000 new projects going into clinical studies every year. So there's a huge demand for this type of technology, and we will not be the last one to come with new technologies. I'm sure that over the next 5-10 years, there will be even more clever and sophisticated technologies coming, but that doesn't mean we will have our space.
For sure, Ole. Thanks a lot. And then there's a question about your revenue expectations for 2023. You expect, as you mentioned before, a quite nice increase in your revenues. Could you elaborate a little on where the revenue stream is coming from?
Yes, it's actually coming from I think it's 10 different sources. So it's not one source, and actually this quarter we expect the revenue to come, like, I think it's 250,000 euros, something like that. So it's a combination of the partnerships we have and also some of the license income. So we expect to get some license fees from one of the projects. So it's not one single say contribution, but it's spread out from 7 or 8 at least different sources. And some of the income is coming from, say, the early feasibility, and some is coming from progressing into prototype development, technology transfer activities. I cannot go more into detail, but I think it's well-founded.
It's not so much about 2023, actually. I know you mentioned that before. It's more like 2025, 26, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Okay. I see there's another question.
Yeah, there's another one coming in here. If possible, could you describe the financial value proposition for the client of using dispersum rather than the polymer technologies?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I would say it depends on the way you apply the technology. Let me just mention a few different examples. When you're a big pharma company and our technology is enabling that you can go to the market, then we will grant a license to use the technology for the time of the product. So it will actually enable the company to prevent competitors from entering the space. That's a very, very important value proposition, because they're getting potentially 3, 4, 5 years more exclusivity in the market. this can mean billions of dollars in the end. So that's one financial value proposition. The other one, more trivial one, is that we will reduce the time required to prepare the formulations to enter clinical studies. A second value proposition is that because if we go to the reformulation stage, because we can create formulations that are having a lower amount of API, they can actually take a higher price for the product and they can get a bigger market share. So that's a different way to see the value in the technology. Yeah. So let me just
we leave it there. Thanks a lot, Ole, for explaining the differences between new drug formulations and existing. Is there any other questions out there? I think no. I think we more or less addressed all the questions so far. There's no questions to Monica, I'm sorry.
very good.
Yeah, I think so. So if there's not any more questions, I would like to thank the audience for the questions, and I would like to thank Ole and Monica for your presentations. Thanks a lot, and hopefully you find this interesting. As I mentioned before, you can contact Ole or Jakob directly on their email if you're interested in putting money into the placement. And hopefully we will see Ole, Jakob very soon again. Thanks a lot for your presentation.
Thank you, Klaus.
And have a nice day.